Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. I have a review for the 2021 Houston Open for you guys, where Carlos Ortiz is your winner. Let's go ahead and get straight into the spreadsheet. I'm going to try to make this one a little quicker than usual. So let's go ahead and go straight to the recap. Carlos Ortiz won at 13 under. He beat out Hideki Matsuyama and Dustin Johnson. He did that by birdieing the 18th hole. So it looked like he had a little bit of nerves heading into those last holes, but I mean, he finished strong. So Carlos Ortiz gets his first win. And I mean, I've been a fan of Carlos Ortiz for a while. If you were with me during the recent form video as well as the course fit video, I mentioned his name a couple times. He has a stat combination leading into this tournament that I'll get to a little bit later that I was targeting, and Carlos Ortiz was in a few of my lineups. So I did pretty decent this week, and a lot of it has to do with owning Carlos Ortiz and sprinkling ownership from the top. I wasn't exactly sure how I felt. I originally, I can't remember who I went heavy on when it came to pricing. Tony Finau. I went heavy on Tony Finau, but thankfully, like, I was discussing with a couple people ownership and things of that nature, and I guess I got cold feet of going all in on Tony Finau and sprinkled in Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Hideki Matsuyama, and thankfully that happened because I was able to make most of my money back. So good thing I didn't go full Tony, but I mean, it wasn't that terrible either. This golf course was much tougher than I anticipated. That's the first thing I should have mentioned. As you can see, it's the first time we're at Memorial Park Golf Course. We are typically at the Golf Club of Houston. So that was a long-standing venue where it's really easy to forecast the score. I went heavy on, basically low scoring guys. So people who could go really low, who might have a little bit of volatility, when in fact, this should have been a tournament we should have targeted more of a grinder type of golfers who don't make as many bogeys, but tend to make more pars than birdies. Because believe it or not, if you didn't know or haven't been paying attention, there are golfers that can go extremely low. And then you have a lot of consistent golfers who just don't have that extra gear that some of these other guys do, but also don't create a lot of errors for themselves. So someone like Jason Day would have been a great pick. And obviously he was doing well for three rounds of this tournament. That fourth round wasn't the greatest, but for 3 rounds, I mean, he was right at the top of the leaderboard. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that this was a grinded out golf course and wasn't a birdie fest, which I was kind of anticipating. Looking at, the golf course, the holes, the yardages that went with it, I honestly thought, this was a gettable golf course. But that shows, if you don't, I mean, I live in Minnesota. If you can't see the golf course with your own eyes, you better be listening to somebody who knows the golf course. And a lot of my analysis for the course fit had to do with just looking at satellite images and the scorecard. So, it is what it is. Can't go back and change it. But now we know if this is a venue that the Houston Open will be played at going forward, we know it's a hard golf course. Obviously, you can see in the scores, but also what the players were saying about the golf course throughout the week. It was difficult. So let's go ahead and get into what I typically cover in these review videos. Going over the optimal lineup versus the $1 GPP winning lineup, which is the short game. I only played one lineup in it, and I mean, I doubled my money in it. So put $1 in and got $2 back. But as we can see, golfers that are highlighted in blue, and I will state this for the audio listeners, but golfers highlighted in blue are your $1 GPP winning lineup. golfers. That's Carlos Ortiz, Dustin Johnson, Sepp Straka, Tyrrell Hatton, Sam Burns, and Maverick McNeely down here in 20th place. The optimal lineup, this is really interesting. So in the $1 GPP winning lineup, you had first, second, fifth, seventh, and another seventh, so 2 7s. So let me say that again. First, second, fifth, seventh, and 20th place. The optimal lineup had first, second, fourth, fifth, and wait for it, 38th place. Will Gordon. Will Gordon was a golfer I was on this week. He scored a lot of birdies, but he followed it up with bogeys or worse. Made the cut, obviously, and had a lot of good rounds. But yeah, that's why we want scorers. Golfers who can score a lot of birdies, because if they do make it around after the cut, they can go low. And Will Gordon was one of those golfers. So really interesting. First time I've seen that with an optimal lineup. The $1 winning lineup used $49,900 of the $50,000 salary on DraftKings. The optimal lineup used $49,300 of the $50,000 that you got to use on DraftKings. The $1 GPP winning lineup scored 550.5 points. The optimal lineup scored 479.5, or not 4, sorry, 579.5. So 29 points. Yeah, 29 points more than the $1 GPP winning lineup. And we could have gotten there another way. I was looking at this right before the video. So if you were to go with, say, these top 4, and then actually I don't know. Let me see if I can remember how I did this. Basically, I knew you could just, I think we don't go Gooch. Darn, it is escaping my brain right now. I can't remember. I need to use 14,800, so basically 74. So I think Sam Burns was one, so I need 73. I need someone over 78.5 points. Yeah, I guess I can't remember, but it was maybe we didn't use DJ. That's what it was. Okay, so didn't use DJ, went Brooks, Sepp, and then I can't believe I can't remember how this goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 8,400 I have left, so I could go something like that. Yeah. All right, so it's eluding my brain. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we could use golfers. I mean, the golfers I highlighted: Carlos Ortiz, Hideki Matsuyama, Sepp Straka, Tyrrell Hatton, Mackenzie Hughes, and Sam Burns. You could certainly put in a lineup together that would have scored you 564.5, which would have beat the 550. But I had a whole different lineup that I was thinking of, so sorry to waste your time. It just spaced my mind. But yeah, we obviously could have created many different lineups, including everyone inside the top 10, but the optimal lineup required a 38th place finish, and there was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right, let's go ahead and dive down into the DK page. And I think the first thing I want to talk about is the SweetSpot rank that I had. I won't lie, it kind of failed me this week. I will say this: there were a lot of good golfers that, or a lot of good plays that came from the SweetSpot rank and numbers. So like a lot of these low price guys that finished pretty decent. Actually, let me go by result first. So, I mean, we had a bunch of guys that finished decent with a good score. I mean, even 40s were good. And these are the ranks that I'm highlighting on the screen. Obviously, those listening can't see that, but I had a bunch that did well. However, my high price guys that weren't ranked very good, you can obviously see them on top here. That includes Hideki Matsuyama, Brooks Koepka, Jason Day. Those three golfers. I mean, I think I need to tweak the scoring just a little bit, primarily because I go by price ranges, and then I kind of try to round out the score, or essentially try to get the 10K guys near the same level as the 6K guys. So I do my weighting just a little bit differently. And I'm going to have to mess around with that to try to figure it out. Either way, if I were to rank this, I think Tony Finau is the top guy that's 10K and above. So he finished 24th, not terrible. And I guess, going by rank up here, a lot of my guys made the cut. Rory Sabatini withdrew, but I think that was primarily because he was playing really bad. I don't really recall what his withdrawal reason was. But looking at everybody here at the top, it looks pretty good. I do have a stretch of golfers here not that great, but for the most part, I like to see more top 10s or more top 20s than I do missed cuts, and it's an even mix. So, like I said, I'm going to have to tweak it just a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, if you would have used this, hopefully you didn't go all in on Sabatini, but you could have gotten on Kazire, who got an 11th place finish. Same with Adam Long, as well as Maverick McNeely. He finished 20th, but you could have got on those guys pretty easy. And everybody down here is in the 6K range. So, or not everybody, but most of the people here are in the 6K range. I mean, Snedeker to me I thought that was going to be a really good play. He was the first round leader, and then just obviously fell off from there. But I thought, okay, I'll say this. The ranking, in my opinion, didn't fail. Obviously, it didn't succeed. And again, a lot of that has to go with a little bit of tweaking. I think these players here will obviously, if I tweak it a little bit, we'll get a notch down. So I guess it's going to be trying to figure out why, say, Adam Long did better than Tom Hoge, and try to figure out, try to find some correlation. Let's just put it that way. And I won't continue to beat that drum. So, SweetSpot rank, not terrible, but could be better. Let's see. The next thing I want to talk about is tee time pairings. So if I were to go and sort this by result, I thought this was amazing. Everyone's highlighted up here except for Michael Thompson. And this is good news. This is great news. I did highlight a lot of golfers, don't get me wrong. So you can see as I scroll through this, there are a lot of golfers that were highlighted. I want to see golfers in green highlighted. Actually, I want to see different colors highlighted. I want to see light red like Sepp Straka, meaning he was the only golfer with a scoring average under the field average in his group. Same goes with Adam Long and Shane Lowry. Now, obviously, we can go and compare it to the other guys that were highlighted in red to see how they did. And it's probably going to be an even mix, but it's good to see stuff like that, because you could almost categorize these golfers as people or golfers that don't require a good group to play well. Like a lot of people feed off of each other, and obviously some people get repelled from others, just depending if they do well or if they do poorly. Maybe we can say Sepp Straka doesn't require, a group to have a low scoring average. Same could apply to Adam Long or Shane Lowry. They're kind of, as I like to joke about Hideki Matsuyama, out on their own island. But either way, seeing all of these highlighted is good. Let's see if we can find anyone that were paired together. I think I just saw one. 34, Jason Day with Victor Hovland. So you have two golfers there inside the top 20 that were paired together. I don't see any others, honestly. Nope. Obviously, I do want to find some. Just I want to see what these, how everyone kind of finished, just to make this a better analysis. Nobody from the morning groups did well that were highlighted together. Actually, a lot of these early morning guys did not do well. There's Shane Lowry by himself. So I wonder why these weren't yellow. I'm assuming one was from recent form and one was from, you know, baseline, what their scoring averages were. Nice to see Shane Lowry shooting all rounds in the 60s, though. That's pretty amazing. Basically, what I'm looking for is golfers who are all highlighted in the group finishing inside the top 10. Just trying to do that really quick, or top 20. So I guess Carlos Ortiz and Harold Varner. I wonder why I would have to go back into the review video to see why these are highlighted different colors. I think green just means they both had recent form in their baseline. Their scoring averages underneath the field average. And obviously yellow means they had one of those, but they were also paired with somebody else that did. That's why. Okay, that makes sense. And it's pretty, I mean, that's okay. It's good to know. Good to talk that out, because it makes sense why some of these guys did well in their groups than the other guys in their groups. Like Taylor Gooch. Like, how many times are we seeing this dark green paired with a yellow, but the dark green doing well? You know, our winner, our 5th place, or I should say our 4th place guy. Very interesting. I guess Dustin Johnson, Tyrrell Hatton. I'm sure you guys probably saw that up on the leaderboard, but that was I missed it because of the color coding. Okay, so we have a few. Let's go ahead and go back by result. So 32 with 32, 34 with 34, 22 and 22. So okay, we have 3 pairings that are inside the top 20. I'm trying to find other color combinations that I might be missing. I don't see any. Okay, so either way, looking at tee time pairings still matters, in my opinion. I do have all the scoring stats here, but I'm going to go ahead and hide them. In fact, oh, here's the other thing too. We talked about golfers that were playing in the Masters and wondering if that's going to have any effect. You know, which ones are going to check out early. So if we go ahead and sort by those playing, we can see 14 missed the cut. Of those 14, the really only notable one, I think, to me, is Jordan Spieth. I mean, sure, Sergio, I would have liked to have seen do better, but really Jordan is a guy who's been reeling, has poor recent form, has not been striking the ball that well. If he were to have made the cut here, I think I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with him going into the Masters, but unfortunately, he missed the cut, and in a bad way. He just had a couple holes and 5-foot or less putts. He only needed to make one of them, and he missed both of them. So I don't know exactly. The worry was how many of these top price guys were going to just check out early. It looks like most of them, you know, did well. So that type of mentality of going into the event prior to the Masters, at least this year, it didn't go that way. I do think that Dustin Johnson and Brooks needed to play well in order to gain that confidence going into Augusta. They're obviously high-class players, world-class players, and I think they have a lot of momentum heading into the Masters. Let's go ahead and bring back everybody in. I think the rest of this that I want to do is going to come back here to the recent form tab that I created. So if you recall, we are going to, or I am going to, use this going forward. You know, this is going to be part of the dream sheet, which I'll be showcasing a little bit later today for the Masters. We look at recent form, which is the last 7 weeks, and then look at the baseline stats. I don't have everybody up here. Let me bring everybody back in. But this is what we're going to do, you know, once I have everything up and running. We're going to be looking at recent form. We're going to compare it against last week's stats, and then we're going to compare recent form versus baseline stats. I don't have last week's stats, primarily because it was the Zozo, so a lot of people weren't playing in the Zozo heading into this. I'm sorry, the Bermuda Championship, not the Zozo, the Bermuda. But here's one thing that I talked about in my recent form video. Let me hide some columns just to make this easier to look at. Now we'll keep it right here. Okay. I filtered from recent form. So this is within the last 7 weeks. I wanted to look at golfers who had better than 0 off the tee stats. Obviously, you're going to see Carlos Ortiz is up there already. But also, I wanted to look at golfers who had negative putting. So let me go ahead and put a condition on this. And there aren't a lot of golfers. There are 26 in this bucket. I'm wondering if I filtered out any more than that. But if we were to look and sort from top to bottom, Carlos Ortiz is on top. And this is a stat that I've been noticing week in and week out. And it really only applies typically to 2 golfers inside the top 10. We saw it at Zozo, we saw it at Bermuda, and saw it here. So actually, let me go ahead. Let me open this back up. That way we can actually analyze this. Okay, so here's your top 10 from Mackenzie Hughes up. I'm going to highlight all of the positive off the tee guys with negative putting. And that's it. So there were 3 in this field, but typically we see 2. In almost every top 10, not every. We're going, again, I looked at Bermuda and Zozo. I saw 2. 2 golfers with positive off the tee, negative putting stats inside the top 10. Likewise, I have seen 1 golfer now in consecutive weeks. I don't remember seeing this in the Zozo that had negative off the tee and negative putting, but positive strokes gained total. And in fact, all of these guys, except for Mackenzie Hughes, had positive strokes gained total heading into this tournament that were inside the top 10. And you can almost expand it to the top 20, but then once you get closer to 20, you see a couple more negative golfers here. But I think that's what I actually did. I think I went baseline. We went with positive, so greater than or equal to 0. Positive off the tee and negative putters. And then we looked at positive off the tee for recent form. As well as negative putters. And I think this is where it's going to actually get our player pool small. There. I went over this in the recent form video. Now this looks familiar. A lot of missed cuts. 9 out of the player pool here that I'm showing you of 14. But what I'm showing you is I said you needed 2 golfers that had positive off the tee and negative putting. Sure, the odds aren't really in your favor to find 2, but let's say Victor Hovland was one of your favorite golfers at 9,800. You just needed to find 1 more. And if I were going like by the bucket system, you know, I know you needed to play somewhere around 3 last year 1 golfers. You can obviously see a bunch of them here, but the top of the salary leaderboard was riddled with last year 1s. So if I'm thinking to myself, those are the guys that are going to find themselves in the top 10, I can ignore the last year 1s within this. I mean, Victor Hovland was one of those guys up there in the salary for last year 1s. So I could find my other ones, last year 2s or last year 3s. Our only last year 3 was Carlos Ortiz. And his course fit for this, he plays a fade. was perfect. He is also from Texas, so I mean that's where I think his residency is now. But either way, you could have put all of those things together to find Carlos Ortiz. It just was. I'm gonna look for that at the Masters as well. I'm probably gonna do the same filter, find two guys I like, and I mean, hopefully, if you guys watched the price breakdown that I just posted about an hour ago, hopefully the 7K golfers that I went over have these exact same stats, because that would be amazing. Let me get rid of these filters so I can talk about some other things. I will say, you know, outside of the, you only want to find around 2 golfers that have positive off the tee and negative putting. On the other hand of that, or on the other side of that, is we want to find positive. So, you know, we have Hideki here. He has, believe it or not, positive putting. And we're going to find a bunch of these guys. Shouldn't say a bunch, but, you know, oh, Shane Lowry is not inside the top 10, so never mind. We'll negate that. But here you go. We have 4 golfers. We already saw 2. Now we have 4 that have positive off the tee, positive putting. And who's that? We have Sam Burns, Tyrrell Hatton, Taylor Gooch, Hideki Matsuyama. Dustin Johnson would most likely be there as well. So really interesting. You know, I don't want to filter out all of that, because I'm sure we're going to see more golfers with, you know, positive. But I guess let's look to see what were their baseline stats. So it was Matsuyama. I have him highlighted over here. Taylor Gooch, not around the green, putting. Sam Burns and Tyrrell Hatton. So outside of Hideki, who has obviously minus putting stats, everybody had that off the tee putting. So we could have probably filtered out by this, make the player pool really small to choose from, and then select our favorite golfers. Now, Sam Burns was a 2-1. Could have been my favorite 2-1 had I done this, you know, looking at 2-1s. And why don't we just do that? Let's filter out. Let's just clear out and just look at last year 2s. I guess by salary as well. Harmon was the most expensive, Cameron Davis, and then Sam Burns. I think it would have been really easy to get on Sam Burns, kind of going by this. Plus, I know he has really good Bermuda stats. He hits the fade, which is a perfect shot shape for this golf course. A lot of things could have gotten us on Sam Burns. And I already talked about how we could have gotten on Patton Kizzire. So really 2 of these guys out of the last year 2s could have gotten on pretty easy. In retrospect, it's always fun to say the what ifs. But that's why this review video is here. So then next year when we look at, you know, creating player pools or trying to create a player pool, we can easily reference this video, reference what we found out, and get the better plays. I don't know if I have really anything else to go with on this. I think, or at least for the recent form, I do want to talk about results. So obviously we see the top 20 here. I do have the Bermuda stats up here. Carlos Ortiz has not had great Bermuda stats, but the one thing that I've always noticed when doing these review videos or course analysis or tournament analysis is I rarely ever see 0 when it comes to top 10 Bermuda percentage. And I think that's because, well, first of all, depending on how many events they've played. So let's say Victor Hovland, let's pretend this was last year. He only had 2 events under his belt. If he was at 0%, I wouldn't really be concerned about that. But if I scroll down here and see like Maverick McNeely with 13 events, 0%, or let's say, I'm trying to find a high count, 24. Bo Hosler, 24 events, never inside the top 10 for Bermuda. Same with Sam Ryder. These guys, 0%. Actually, here's your big one here. Hunter Mahan. Believe it or not, 0% times inside the top 10. So this is one of those things I think in the future I'm just going to right away filter by anyone that's at 0%, and maybe that's how I'll create a conditional when it comes to the SweetSpot rank. Because even if their Bermuda stats are decent, if they haven't been inside the top 10, they're not golfers we really want to play. I think, I mean, there really isn't a tell when it comes to this. We do, so it's color coded. Yellow is right in the middle. Orange is towards the bottom half, and anything close to green is towards the top half. You see a bunch of different colors here. So thinking about Bermuda average, sure, it could have gotten us on, obviously Dustin Johnson was the best on Bermuda, could easily have gotten us there. Same with Brooks, but some of these other, low price guys like Carlos Ortiz, just going strictly by grass stats would not have been, it wouldn't have gotten us on Carlos Ortiz. It might have influenced us to not play him. So that would have been concerning, because obviously you would have needed him to win a GPP or to make, decent money. But also like Taylor Gooch, Sepp Straka, those things, those are difficult to look at and try to analyze. Like, I don't know. I mean, sure, Taylor Gooch has had decent Bermuda. I guess that's also a baseline, right? We can look at their overall Bermuda, look at their 2020 and see if they're doing better. Maybe they figured something out on Bermuda. But like Sam Burns, 16% clip inside the top 10 is really good. I think I need to really look at this percentage to get a potential out of golfers, right? Because looking at overall Bermuda, we want to try to factor in some, volatile golfers. Some golfers who can obviously shoot really low and finish inside the top 10 or miss the cut completely. If we can find golfers or identify golfers like that, more likely when we add them to our core lineups, they're either obviously going to boost them incredibly or they're going to hurt them quite a bit. But I think without them, you don't win a GPP. So that's something I'm probably going to be looking at going forward. So grass stats wasn't really beneficial, other than maybe trying to, pinpoint your top price guys and go with them. I mean, Tyrrell Hatton did not have very good overall Bermuda. And if you had to choose between him and, say, Dustin Johnson or Brooks Koepka, you could have used Bermuda stats to be the tiebreaker, and that's how you could have gotten those guys. Same with Hideki Matsuyama. So I guess that would probably be a better way to determine, golfers that you like or dislike. I liked Carlos Ortiz because of his off the tee stats and his negative putting. He's also a 3-1, which was not terrible. But I guess that would be the next thing I want to talk about. And the last thing is the bucket system. The SweetSpot rank has the bucket system baked into it. But when we look at the top 20 leaderboard, it has a ton of last year ones. And that's primarily because, not a lot of guys played this tournament last year heading into this. I mean, the player pool for last year ones was very large. If we go and sort this out, last year ones had 71 golfers out of 130. So more than half. And out of them, 13. So 13 out of 70 finished inside the top 20. It's actually a pretty good number considering. So actually, I do want to bring that up. Let's just go over the percentages. This way we can kind of really determine if one bucket is better. So what do we say? 13 divided by 71. So 18% for last year ones finished inside the top 20. Looking at last year twos, we had a total of 29 and 4 finished inside the top 20. So 4 divided by 29, 13%. Looking at our our last year threes, didn't really have a lot. 15, and we had 4. So this is going to actually be a pretty good percentage. 26%. So last year 3s thrived for how big this pool was. Pretty darn good. Last year 4s, we had what, 1 out of 6, which I think we already figured out was 16%. And last year 5s, 1 out of 7, which was 14%. So last year 1s, pretty good. I mean, all of them ended up being pretty decent. Last year 3s, obviously, like, that was impressive. Only 15 in the field, or in that group, and 4 of them finished inside the top 20. 3 of them finished inside the top 5, and they were all 7,700 and below. No real tell that I can see when it comes to stats. They all had, I guess, positive off the tee stats. Positive approach. Only Ortiz had negative putting. Wow. I should have we could have looked at bogey avoidance. Let's see who the best bogey avoidance golfers were. Yeah, never mind. We see out of the top 16, exactly 0 golfers with, well, I should say from the best bogey avoidance golfers in the field this year. You have Taylor Gooch and Russell Knox as the only 2 in the top 20 bogey avoidance to finish inside the top 20. Yeah, so bogey avoidance would not have been an easy one to look at. Couldn't have gotten us there. So that's going to be a wrap. I don't have anything else to add. It was a fun tournament. It was really interesting. I didn't foresee how difficult that course was going to be. Good to know now for if they do play next year. We can kind of bake that into basically our pre-tournament analysis. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you throughout the week for Masters content. All right, see you later.